Welcome to Father and Son. I'm here on my own. My son's not. Tom's very busy at the moment, as you probably know. He's doing Darren Hinch's drive time program every day of the week, Monday to Friday from 4 to 6. And he's also doing his full-time job, so he's just finding it difficult at the moment. But the other interesting thing about Father and Son, we resume on Sunday, Tom and I, on 3AW at 12 o'clock. So we look forward to having you listening to our show, which is much the same as it is here, but it'll be fun, and we'll know some more results from the footy. I spent last week in Sri Lanka at the invitation of a leading law firm up there and met all the important players other than the president. I met 5 senior cabinet ministers, the governor of the Reserve Bank, the chairman and CEO of the biggest bank in the country. Met some very interesting people. Now, Sri Lanka has been forgotten by Australia because there's been a war going on for 25 years. Now that war is over, you have a conservative government in place, 5-year tax-free, very keen to attract foreign investment, a lot of Chinese money coming in to build roads, the economy's growing at 8%, and they're very open to new ideas because they know they've been out of the mainstream for a long time. If any of you have any inkling, there's a lot of property deals. I came up with a couple which look very interesting. But if any of you are interested in investing or selling product to Sri Lanka, get onto my website and let me know and I'll be in touch with you. And it was a very interesting trip, very hot. I went down to watch the cricket late Friday afternoon. By the time I got there, it was the test match against Sri Lanka at Kandy. By the time I got there, bad luck had stopped play. So it was 6 or 7 hours drive. Now, what's been happening here in Australia? Well, we've now got a media inquiry on, instituted by Bob Brown and meekly agreed to by the government. Quite unnecessary, and they say that in the terms of reference there'll be nothing to do with buyers, but it's clearly an attack on the Murdoch press, and I think it's very unnecessary. Freedom of the press is the most important thing we've protected in this country since Federation, and I can't see the point of this at all. The AFL players contract, yesterday the players responded by not agreeing to the AFL's proposal, which was 11% in the first year, 5% in the second, and then 3 years of 3%. So over the 5 years, that would be 25%. In a very shrewd statement, the players came back and said, we'll just accept the first 3 years. But of course, what the AFL had done to get them to agree was to front end by giving them an 11% in year 1 and 5, and then come down 3. If you did that equally over the period, it would be 5% per year for the 5 years. So, that's about 15%. What the players responded is, we'll take the first 3 years, which would be 19% over that period, and clearly the AFL can't agree to it and are not prepared to, and the last thing they will want is to be renegotiating again in 3 years' time. I think the players are being very greedy. They should get on and reach an agreement. Looks like the carbon tax will go through without any difficulty. You've got the Greens and the government working together. They've now got a majority, only a small one in the House of Reps and a clear majority in the Senate. They're going to push it through quickly, which the Conservative side is saying, you don't even want to debate it. From the government's point of view, the quicker they get it through, the better. It will become effective from July 1 next year. So it's not a good thing for the country when nobody else is doing it, in my view, but there we are. And I'm certain it will cost the Prime Minister and her Labor government office at the next election. All the Leader of the Opposition will continue to do is to hammer, and it won't go away before the next election. The refugees legislation, which the government amendments they're putting up to the Immigration Act, now they're doing this to try and make sure that their Malaysian deal can go ahead by altering the law after it was knocked back by the High Court. Now the problem here is that the Greens are dead against it, and it's become quite clear that the Conservatives will not vote for it unless the Prime Minister Gillard reverts to looking at Nauru as the alternative place to, of the offshore place to process these refugees. So that's interesting. So I think that one's dead in the water, which is going to continue to cause angst for the government. They've got the carbon tax and the refugee problem. Of course, we've now got both starting to pour in again, and they certainly have made a mess of that whole issue. Now, finally, we've got the semi-finals of the football tonight. Hawthorn played the Swans. I thought the Swans were very impressive in beating St Kilda last week, and I actually think they've got a very good chance of winning. The one thing against them is they've only won one of their last 13 games at the MCG, but they're tough tackling pressure, and I doubt if Buddy will play. If he does, well, then they run the risk of him getting re-hurt. So, whereas Carlton did not take the risk on Gibbs, Ratton was quite clear that if Gibbs got hurt in the first quarter of the game against West Coast, which is on tomorrow night, then they'd be playing one short, and in finals you can't afford to do that. So he's been rested, and they brought Tui in. I think the Blues have got a good chance if they play as well as they did last week, where the midfield clearly dominated, and the Aboriginals, the four of them, all played particularly well. Now, the Subiaco ground is bigger than the MCG, not quite as wide, but it is bigger, longer, so it'll suit Carlton's style of play. The real key is can our ruckman, who played really well, Warnock, can he cover Cox and Napanui so that the Carlton midfield, which is probably the best in the league, can get first use of the ball. It's going to be a very interesting game. Let's hope that the Blues win. Well, that's all for this week. Don't forget 3AW this Sunday and at 12 o'clock, and we'll see you next week.